Everything is going perfectly well, and we are at 639, exactly at the point that I was watching. Those are my numbers, so that's a good sign. Synchronicities, baby. I love them. Okay, I'm a bit excited to start this first video because I've never done something like this before, but I really felt that I had to start doing this. Let me quickly first introduce myself. My name is Ben Visser. I'm 27-year-old and I'm from the Netherlands, currently living in Rotterdam. And I feel guided and urged to start getting out my message. What I want to achieve with getting my message across and sharing my experiences with you is that I want to let other people know that are going through similar kind of experiences that they are not alone. And I just want to give, and everybody has its own version of how they're going through all of this, and their own special abilities and things that they feel that are guiding them, and that they are motivated to do these kind of things and deal with energies in a different way. And I just want to give my personal experience and perspective on all of this, so that people that don't know me at this time, after having watched these first videos that I'm aiming to get out, that they have a feeling that they know what I've been through, and that hopefully some people can relate to the stuff that I have been experiencing. I want to eventually create some kind of platform in where I can get in contact with people that maybe need help, or other people are willing to collaborate with me and work with me in order to help other people, and to kind of create some kind of movement, at least here in the Netherlands, for which I currently am not aware that there is anything like this. So, with this very first video, I want to share the start of my journey. My very first experience that awakened my spirituality. And I'm a big YouTube fan. Over the last couple of years I've really got to enjoy all these different kinds of YouTubers and different ways of how people are able to express themselves and use art, or talk about their experiences, or make or write stuff, read out the poems that they've written. It's like this beautiful medium where you can really have an opportunity to get like a big story out, get into detail, and to get really to know other people. The ones that I really liked also kind of inspired me to make like different types of videos and use the things that I've really got to appreciate of those other videos in my own way of doing this. So with this very first video, I thought it would be a really cool idea if I would make like a drawing of my very first story. I did prepare it with like small drawings first, but I tried not to prepare too much, to kind of get into some kind of flow state, some drawing flow state, and to just do it in one take. And I promised that all of these videos I just want to do it in one take and not spend too much time perfecting them and getting over them and shooting them again, because I know that I'm probably never going to be satisfied with them. So I just decided that I want to train also my flow states in all kinds of different ways, that I just learn to express what I feel instantly without preparing and thinking too much about it. What I've been drawing is more an artistic way to express how I kind of experienced it all. And basically all started 3 years ago in the summer of 2016, where I registered for a summer school program which was called The Journey. And in the whole process of getting to know what it was about and reading about it online and everything, I saw that it said somewhere that this summer school was a life-changing experience. Well, I had my doubts about that, like how life-changing can such a thing be, but let's just go into it with an open mind, and we'll see what happens. Summer school is a European program with different locations throughout 5 weeks, and I spent 2 weeks in the university in Hamburg, 2 weeks in London, and 1 week, the final presentation week of the whole thing, in Warwick in the UK. And the whole general idea of the summer school was about sustainability and entrepreneurship, that you would form a group and come up with a world-saving idea quite quickly. We started to get to know these people, and I friended 2 really amazing guys, and later on in the program 2 really nice girls also joined in, and we had a good group that we had a lot of fun with, and we learned a lot, but the most interesting thing was kind of the stuff that happened next to it, because one of the 3 guys got talking about how I was very much involved with self-exploration and keeping journals and thinking of what my purpose is in life and all that kind of stuff. And he told me that he had some experience with psychedelics, and that he read somewhere, and he also noticed for himself that this could kind of like open up your mind and help you in self-exploration and all those kind of stuff. So, and I was immediately interested because I read the book of Steve Jobs, the biography, somewhere that year before. So I said, okay, I'm actually studying in London right now at the moment, so he could get the stuff delivered to his home address, and it would actually work perfectly in that way. So that's what we did. Ordered through the dark web and delivered in like a really normal looking postcard. It was quite awesome, where with some sunflower on it, and it had like a double layer in which the LSD was stored. So we could rip it up, we took it in, and we went to Hyde Park. So we went into the metro, went to the park, and while of course it takes some time for the stuff to actually kick in, at a certain point I started to kind of feel that something was changing. But it was not really for the better. I didn't really start to feel much better. It was actually the opposite. I kind of started to feel like I was going to faint. Like I really recognized this feeling as from my childhood, which was actually something that I, as a child, had been most anxious for, is fainting, because I'm very in where I really need to eat a lot, or like at structured points during the day, in order to make sure that I didn't faint. And as a child, at the moments that it did happen, they were really frightening experiences, which really got me afraid of it, and really got this kind of like hold on me for the rest of my life, that I really need to make sure that I eat in time, and that I should avoid getting into this kind of situation where I could faint. And that kind of dragged on for like the whole first peak of the trip. And the trip, that first peak is about 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, where I was really in this kind of like state where I was not really able to put into words what was going on. I couldn't, like, all the stuff that, like, this, I just didn't feel like I wanted to put the energy and the effort into explaining it for what was actually happening. So that's also why I didn't speak for that entire 1 hour and a half. Going through this very anxious experience. And it really felt like exactly the way I draw it here, in a way that I was feeling like I was falling. And I didn't really had a grip on reality anymore. So I was kind of like losing touch with all of that. And at a certain point, I just decided that I had to sit down. Like the experience was getting more intense, and like I knew that I was not going to faint, but I was going through this kind of like feeling, and I had to really make sure that I hold on to the bit of reality that I still was able to work with. Which is when I decided to sit down and saw a nice big tree, which I felt drawn to in order to sit and take my journal, my notebook, which I knew that I took because I knew that it might come in handy, that if there was maybe some kind of cool experience, I could jot down notes immediately so that I can reproduce it more easily. So when I sat down near the tree and I started to kind of like grab these, try to figure out the right words in order to describe what I was actually going through, I started to kind of like realizing what was actually going on, or I started to make sense of it. I was not sure in my mind if it was the drugs that was making this stuff up for me, so that it was not real, but that the drugs was just making me think that it was real, or that it was actually real and that the drug was helping me in order to see it, in order to kind of experience that I was slipping away from the normal, my usual dimension, my usual reality. And this is what I kind of like started to write down into my journal. And when I was starting to write this down, I was kind of like, my intuition already told me that it was not the drugs that was making this up, but that it was actually these psychedelics are kind of like lifting up your, like the radio wave that you are able to receive as the reality into a different higher frequencies, where you are like able to tune in into other dimensions. And that was like the feeling that it was like the start of like this huge adventure, like that there was so much more to explore than just this dimension that I had been used to, that I had been living in all of my life, and that there was like all of these other different realities that I could start exploring, because I was because this kind of like psychedelics made that possible for me. So it really felt like the whole experience of it first going through like my biggest childhood fears changed when I took my notebook and I started to, because I didn't know what was real anymore, started to create my own reality by writing it all down, and in that way creating this kind of like super enthusiastic and motivated emotion inside of me, that there was this whole new adventure opening up to me. that I had to start exploring. So that's kind of like what I draw here, that I was like having this feeling that I was falling, and that through like these kind of psychedelics like mushrooms and LSD, I was able to kind of like go through this portal, like get into like different realities. So these different lines, these different colors are different frequencies that you could tune into, different dimensions, different realities, and that it like the ones that you choose are kind of like creating entirely new worlds which you could explore. And that I was sitting in one of these worlds, and this is what I thought, this is the thing that I was realizing when I was like writing it all down, and that this was the starting sign for me. Everybody has in its own life probably some kind of challenges he needs to face, but I was also writing about how in this dimension, this reality, these kind of psychedelics are being seen as hardcore drugs, as something that people get addicted to and fuck up their entire lives with if they get to start these kind of things. And something else that was happening at that moment, and which I didn't really feel like I wanted to get into, because everything, the whole experience was already so overwhelming that I just wanted to focus on what was on my writing. But during this, like the majority of my writing sessions, when I was looking up and trying to think of words and to hold myself together, I was seeing that there was this relatively small woman in shorts with a little backpack holding it and sunglasses, standing there like maybe 10 meters away from me and looking at me. She was really like continuously looking at me, and I felt like I could not make contact with normal people that were not going through this, because I was already not able to talk to my friends, not able to put it into words what was going on to me. So I was definitely not going to involve somebody entirely new into all of this. So I thought I'd just let her be and she will probably go away. But she didn't go away, she was standing there the entire time. And what I came to realize much later, like maybe this year, 3 years later from that moment, is that probably this woman was like a higher energetic entity that was able to choose the frequency, the reality that they want to be in. So I use the LSD in order to kind of like get to other levels of consciousness. But they can probably choose themselves on where they want to tune their frequency on. So that I believe right now, with the knowledge that I've gained, that this was a higher being that was standing there and created this telepathic connection with me, and where she was like helping me to understand, or maybe even explaining to me to make sense of it so I could write it down. So I think that the things that I got to understand when I sat down and started to write is also influenced, and you could actually maybe compare it to somebody from the Matrix with the sunglasses that was from this different dimension coming here in order to help me and to communicate with me. After I kind of like had the feeling that I had it all written down, that I was like through this first peak of the whole trip, I knew at the end of that trip that I needed to figure out some kind of way for myself in order to start having these kind of experiences but in a way that I was probably feeling more comfortable with it, because this LSD trip was too much for me. I needed some kind of way to maybe more naturally get into these kind of state of being. I knew that if this was not the drugs making it up in my mind, it had to be possible to also get to this kind of state of being without the drugs. So the realization of truth that I gained through this psychedelic experience, but then creating these kind of habits that it would be possible for me to get to this kind of state of being without the help of these kind of psychedelics. That's what I really got out of it. So summer school was not the journey, but because gained these realizations for me and started this huge adventure of which what I have been experiencing now in the last year, and I will come back to that like in future videos, but what I have been going through and how amazing life has become, and how like unimaginable the things and the skills that I have gained because of this adventure was really life-changing. I think that's it. Some really interesting experience which I have with this kind of artistic expression is that, so I draw like separate drawings of the 3 different scenes that I wanted to incorporate in my story and in my drawing, and by just drawing them at a completely different time of the weekend separately, I got to think about them and process them and consolidate like the stuff that I had been drawing, and also then it comes back in my meditation. So how the colors have been flowing over the paper with aquarelle, it's really nice, and you kind of see the same visuals or experience the same visuals when I meditate. But also what also really beautifully worked out in meditation is how the separate drawings that I first drew got connected, like how I should connect them into one drawing, and how the different phases blended in perfectly. So this concept of this portal that I drew, and where we as the 3 adventurers, my 2 friends, kind of got sucked in and got into this singularity, which is basically a portal that we went through, in my experience, and that this portal kind of like then diverged again into this spiral of colors in which you could choose the frequency that you wanted to get in. And at this point, of course, I was not able to choose. I just like had to get it all over me and get to understand that it is that way and that it works, but that basically everything, all these frequencies, all these different possibilities are all happening at the same time, and that it's purely your mind and how you choose to deal with it that is able to make you choose which one of these frequencies and which one of these worlds you want to get into or want to experience. It's purely your intention on how you want to go through this portal. And I think that got visualized really, really nicely in doing this drawing, which I did never think about before I did this drawing. I never saw it like that or experienced it like that, but just through this artistic process of doing it in this way, it really got like really interesting results. And I would highly recommend anybody who feels that they are artistic or want to kind of get in touch more with their spirit guides and with the influences that are not physical, then writing, drawing, making videos, making art, all kinds of different forms of art are really the way to get in contact with that higher thing, your higher self. And I think this very first video has been a perfect example of how that has worked out. So I'm really happy with the way. And for the next video, I want to get more into rationalizing or kind of give some arguments why you should not be afraid of using psychedelics for your spiritual awakening. Perfect. Thank you very much.